Hi, today's lesson is half of the telling time lesson. There's a reason why we split it in half, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but make sure you have your grammar notebook out and open to page 3. You may need to flip back to your numbers notes, which is just the page beforehand. Many of you had asked ahead of time about why you couldn't do the time pages before the date. And the reason why that it's mixed up in your grammar notebook is because I wanted the two halves of the clock to be able to be seen at the same time. So when you open your grammar notebook, page 3 and page 4 are the two halves of the clock so that you can have them open and see them both at the same time. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, on to the notes. La hora, you hopefully already realized, was the hour, literally, or time. So to ask what time it is, we say, ¿Qué hora es? If you notice, the E has an accent mark that just tells us to put some extra force on that vowel. And QU is always pronounced with a K sound. So this is not que or any, it's K. Like we would say our English letter K. ¿Qué hora es? Literally means what hour is it? We would say what time is it? Es la una means it's 1 o'clock. Now you're going to see another thing right after es la una, and there's another way to say it is. In Spanish, we have to worry about singular and plural. Una is just one, so that's singular. So we say es la una. We would only use es la if we're saying the hour is 1. It's 1, 1:05, 1:10, 1:15, and so on. Every other hour, 2, 3, 4, those are all greater than 1, so they are plural. To say it is when we're talking about something plural, we say son las. So son las dos, son las tres, son las cuatro, son las cinco, all the way up to son las 12. Be careful. Son las dos and son las 12 sound very, very similar. Son las dos, it's 2 o'clock. Son las 12, it's 12 o'clock. In English, when we're telling time, we don't always just use number words. We use some special words sometimes like quarter and half. It's quarter after 2, it's half past 4. So in Spanish, we also have those special words. Cuarto is quarter, and media is half. Now be careful because a quarter of a dollar is 25 cents, but a quarter of an hour is only 15 minutes because there's only 60 minutes in an hour. So 1/4 of 60 is 15. Getting a little math review in here. And half of an hour is only 30 minutes, not 50, like half of a dollar is 50 cents. Also, we sometimes have to clarify if something is in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, or at night. In Spanish, to do that, we will say de la mañana, in the morning, de la tarde, in the afternoon, or de la noche, in the evening, or it could also mean at night, depending on how late it is. When does it switch? When does it switch from morning to afternoon, from afternoon to evening? When does it switch from night to morning? Go ahead and pause the video for just a few minutes and think about that. What time of day do those things switch? Hopefully you paused the video, did a little bit of thinking. I would add this in on your notes page right next to the words morning, afternoon, and evening. So hopefully we all realize that it switches from morning to afternoon at 12. 12 p.m. is 12 in the afternoon. From afternoon to evening is a little more tricky. It kind of depends on where you are. In most countries, they tend to eat dinner, in most Spanish-speaking countries, I should clarify, they tend to eat dinner a little later, than most Americans do. In most Spanish-speaking countries, dinner is at the earliest, typically around 7. Um, but in other countries in the world, depending on where you are, might be between 5 and 7. So that switch from afternoon to evening really is, there's like a transition window where you could say either of them, depending on where you're located and what is typical in your area. If you want a hard and fast number to make it always be one or the other, use 6 o'clock, because that splits the PM time exactly in half. So afternoon would be 12 p.m. noon until 6 p.m. And then in the evening or at night would be 6 p.m. until we switch back to morning, which is actually at midnight. So at 12 o'clock, midnight, it is technically AM now. It's in the morning. If you think about it, think about celebrating New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. It's officially January 1st when the clock strikes midnight. So that's why the switch is then. So morning or AM goes from 12 a.m. midnight up until 11:59 and 59 seconds, if you want to be precise. Then when the clock is exactly 12 in the daylight time, that is afternoon, that is PM. So hopefully that makes sense of when things switch from time for especially afternoon to evening. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to email me or post comments on the assignments or even the link to this video. Okay, so how do we actually tell time when it's not just it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock? So you see we have the first half of the clock, and that is because when we are exactly on the hour all the way to 30 minutes on the clock, we say it's 12, it's 12:05, 12:10, 12:15, and so on. When we get past 30 minutes, we do something else in Spanish. And so we'll get to that after we do a little bit of practice with the easy part of telling time. So remember, you're going to use either es la or son las, it is. Es la is only when it's 1 o'clock. Son las is any other hour. Then you're going to use the word for the hour number. So if it's 12, you're going to use doce. If it's 3, you're going to use tres. Y, we learn this as the letter Y. This also is the word y. It means and. Just like we have some words in English that are only one letter, like I am going to the store. Spanish also has a few words that are only one letter. So we have es, la, and then una, y, and then whatever your minute number is. You'll notice that I had started marking these off as 5, 10, 15, 20. We are only going to focus on the multiples of 5 just to keep things easy. Now, could you say it's 106? Absolutely. But most of us don't do that. We leave it as a multiple of 5 just for simplicity's sake. So if it's exactly on the hour, so it's 12 o'clock exactly, you can say son las 12 en punto. That means like on the dot. Punto is point or dot, like the period at the end of a sentence. Punto. You don't have to have that part. That is optional. So you could just say son las 12 or es la una, son las dos, son las tres, son las cuatro, and so on. If it's more than exactly on the hour, you're going to add some minutes to it. So if it's y cinco, if it's 5 after, es la una y cinco, or son las dos y cinco. Y 10, y 15. Now remember, we had that special word for quarter. So it could be y cuarto. I use cuarto almost every time. You can use either one. Y 20, y 25, y 30. Most people don't say like 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. They say es la 1:30 and half. It's 1:30. It's 1.5, 2.5, which the and a half doesn't really sound right in English, but in Spanish it does. So a few practice problems. So the first one, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to say it's 1 o'clock in the morning just because we're going to do AM, PM, just to practice. So if it's 1 o'clock, do you need es la or son las? Think, is one singular or plural? So we should have es la, and then one is. We're going to say una instead of uno because we're talking about la hora. In Spanish, we also have to worry about masculine and feminine. So for time, it's going to be una because it's feminine. We can say, and then we would say de la mañana for in the morning. We could say es la 1:00 de la mañana if we wanted to be very, very precise. Okay, the next clock we're going to do says 10:05, and we're going to do PM. So first of all, before we do anything with the morning, afternoon, or evening, is 10 o'clock, is 10 singular or plural? So 10 is plural. So we should have son las. The number word for 10 is diez. Y, and then the number word for 5 is cinco. So son las 10:05. And then would 10:05 p.m. be in the afternoon or in the evening / at night? Okay, so 10:05 is typically past when I even go to bed. That's definitely evening. So we would say de la noche. Okay, the next clock is 2:20. We're going to use PM as well for this one. Again, 2 o'clock. So is that singular, plural? We should hopefully know it's plural. So son las dos. And then 20 is 20. So y 20. 2:20 p.m. So in a normal school year, that would be at the end of 7th hour. So school gets out technically at 2:35. So that is almost the end of the school day. That would be afternoon. So we'd say de la tarde. The last one, we're going to go ahead and do morning, the AM again. So morning, we have 3:15. Pause, do this one on your own, and then check your answer. So you should have son las 3:15 de la mañana. Or remember, I like to use cuarto. I say it's a quarter after. Son las 3:15 de la mañana. On your assignment for today, the hours practice number 1, you will have 9 clocks and you're going to write the time in Spanish. Do the first row is AM. So 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be de la mañana. All of the ones after that are going to be PM, and you're going to have to decide, is that in the afternoon or is that evening / night? Don't forget to capitalize the first letter of your sentence and end with a period because we're now writing sentences. There will be some options in the Schoology for these extra letters. So the enye, the N with a squiggle mark on it, and the accented vowels. I will set it up for the first few assignments so that those will not count against you if you don't use them. But eventually, we're going to get into the habit of making sure we have those, especially the enye. That one is the most important to not forget. Please email me or post comments on the assignment. Write in Schoology if you have questions. If another student sees the comment before I do and they know how to answer whatever your question is, please feel free to help each other out. That's what we would do in a normal year when we were in class together, is we would help each other out and ask each other questions. So please use that comment section in Schoology to ask each other questions, and I will respond and answer you as well. Write in Schoology if you have questions. If another student sees the comment before I do and they know how to answer whatever your question is, please feel free to help each other out. That's what we would do in a normal